I was foretold your rebel sex, nor love nor pity knew. And with that scorn you used to vex poor hearts that humbly sue. Yet I believed to crown our pain, could we the fortress win, the happy lover sure should gain a paradise within. Sweetest love, I do not go for weariness of thee, nor in hope the world can show a fitter love for me. Oh, how feeble is man's power, that if good fortune fall, cannot add another hour, nor a lost hour recall.
In Vermeer's representation of the artist in his studio, we see this picture from behind, the silhouette of the artist seated on a stool. Now, are we right in assuming that that is in fact a picture of the artist himself? Is that Vermeer? And is this first enigmatic image that we have of an artist about whom we now seem to know so little?
Given the scene which he's painting and the model, the map and such, we know this to be in fact the setting which he paints, so we assume it is Vermeer. But the elusiveness of the painter representing himself, as compared, for example, to Rembrandt, is striking. He focuses in the end, on a single woman, alone, upright, self-possessed, in the corner of a room with a window. That's it.
Would one want to say that Vermeer was appealing to a sensibility which was already in place in Holland at that time, or was he actually making a massive contribution to a new sensibility by painting in that way?
To answer that, I would say yes, he's constructing a sensibility. After all, he removes the obvious representation which has eye appeal and object appeal in the art of other Dutch painters. So in that sense, he's producing a taste for something else.
Nowadays, of course, one of the things that we cherish in Vermeer is the very notion of austerity itself, of abstract simplicity. We see in Vermeer things which seem to point forward to the abstract paintings of someone like Mondrian. Now, presumably that was not there consciously in his mind when he was painting.
Well, obviously Mondrian couldn't be in his mind, that's clear. But there is something, and perhaps I turn it another way, Jonathan, and say there is something, after all, schematic, generalized about the way in which to take the women, since they're the major subject, the dominant subject, the way in which he represents them. So there's something generalized and schematic, and indeed against the attempt to identify wife here, daughter number 5 here, or something like that. They are remarkably similar. I mean, there's a kind of Vermeer generalized woman type, which you can trust to come up in picture after picture. I mean, the great difference twixt Vermeer and Mondrian, aside from the difference in when they painted and the worlds around them, is that Vermeer holds on to the human figure.
Everything is an actual object. It is an actual table, an actual window, an actual picture on the wall, and the wall itself is real. But there seems to be behind it something which doesn't figure earlier, which is this, this concern with the arrangement of the physical world in a formal way. Perhaps formality is perhaps a better word for than abstraction.
And maybe we should say poise. And if you look at the hands of the women, the extraordinary care, the faces are quite dead, totally inexpressive, but the hands are hugely carefully, formally arranged, not expressive, but formally arranged, and one feels that it all hangs on the way in which she stands there between outside and inside, light coming in and such. So that's why I say poise rather than formal, because poise includes the human.
I wonder if I could take exception with you on this question of the expressionlessness of the faces. The thing that has always struck me about it is that these poised figures, who are showing none of the classic physiognomic types of expression, there is no rage, there's no fear, there's no lust, they are at rest. But would you like to comment on the idea that these are figures who are expressionless because they are absorbed rather than, as it were, simply devoid of expression, that we are actually witnessing people who are in a state of mind which is very distinctive rather than no state of mind at all?
Fair. I mean, that there is a state of mind.
It represents an intensity of some sort. It's an intensity which doesn't show itself in a smile, in a grimace, in in the lighting up of the eye, but it's quite clearly that we are in the presence of consciousness.
We might think of the lace maker in the Louvre, another woman bent over her task, and a task which is more akin to the task of being a painter, since she's dealing with colored threads that are like pigments. So she's dealing with pigment too, in a sense, at one remove.
So he turns our attention towards something which had previously been neglected, which is the nature of attention itself. That previously animation, excitement, drama had been the focus of, say, history paintings, and here are people who are undergoing what most of us spend most of our lives undergoing, which is the petty tasks of life, in which actually most of human energy is invested. So in fact it is not simply in the picture called The Art of Painting that we are seeing painting represented, that in seeing a lady carefully pouring milk and accurately pouring it, in a lady making lace, that we are actually seeing the psychological prerequisites of being a painter, so that it's almost a mirror casting back an image of the necessary mental state required for painting.
That's absolutely true.
And I wonder whether it is that he's focusing attention upon something which in fact has previously been overlooked, which is the quiet flow of undirected thought, which perhaps is the most valuable part of human life.
Vermeer could portray an allegorical message, but in an oblique way, as in a woman holding a balance. It's a picture poised between dark and light. Sunlight descends from the invisible window. It falls on the hand delicately holding the balance. Above, the light caresses the gentle contours of the woman's face. Behind is the dark rectangle of a painting of Judgment Day. Immediately above her submissive head, Christ sits in majesty. To judge is to weigh. Christ's raised arms echo the twin pans of the balance. The woman has not placed anything in them as yet. Is she perhaps pregnant, about to bring a new life into the balance? Vermeer was able to give the mundane, domestic interiors of his pictures a significance which was suggested rather than made specific. When he painted a directly allegorical study of the Catholic faith, it was a failure. The balance that is maintained in most of his work between realism and implied meaning was shattered. At about this time, 1672, the equilibrium of the Netherlands itself was broken. Throughout their history, the Dutch have been pioneering seamen and tough adversaries in war. The Dutch Navy had proved more than a match for the British in the Anglo-Dutch sea wars of Vermeer's early manhood. But now King Charles of England made a surprise alliance with Louis XIV of France. While the British patrolled the seas, a crack French army, 150,000 strong, invaded from the south, spreading death and destruction through the Netherlands. It seemed Amsterdam itself would fall.